I'm going to maybe I'm going to follow Cam's outline here, but again, a big shout out to Keith Clausen and Cam for putting this together. Thanks to our panelists for taking their time. I'm just going to do a few introductions before we get the evening rolling. So I'm going to do this collectively. So your panel tonight collectively has 99 years of PGA membership. They have 3 Golf Professional of the Year recipients, 2 section presidents, 2 national awards, 10 additional section awards, countless years of section service to the association at the section and national level. They have experience at private, semi-private, public golf course, along with association management. So the information that you're going to glean this evening from these folks is quite honestly priceless. So, you know, leading small and big teams throughout their careers. They're now obviously collectively at, you know, some of the best golf courses in the country, if not the world. So I think what we're going to do, Keith, unless there's anything else that you or Cam want to throw in there, you want to just kind of turn it over to JK and let him roll in our first topic there?
Absolutely. I don't have anything to say.
Okay.
Other than thank you.
All right.
Hey, gentlemen, really quick, before we get started, I just got a few housekeeping things.
No, thanks, man. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good. If you're not speaking, if you can please keep your microphone on mute so there's no background noise. If you would all please keep your cameras on so that we can see your faces and engage with you, that would be ideal. There's a button at the bottom of your screen that says do not present, or that says present now. Please do not click that, as that will share your screen. If you do have any technical issues, please put those into the chat and I'll do my best to help you through those. Just be aware that a lot of times that stems from your own Wi-Fi connection. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please put those in the chat feature unless you're called on, and we'll get to those as needed. If anyone has dialed in, I don't think anyone has yet, but if anyone has dialed in, please send me an email at mfrey@pgahq.com so you can get your MSR credit for today. And lastly, we are recording this. It won't be public, but if you ever need to refer back to it, you can reach out to me for a link to the recording. That's all. Thank you, gentlemen.
I forgot there were a couple of other tidbits. We do have a PSU grad, a College of Worcester grad, and a Gannon College grad. And Jimmy, you graduated from the School of Hard Knocks at Ashburn, right? Is that right?
Something like that. Yeah, something like that.
But we'll roll over to our first topic about how to differentiate yourself. And Mr. Jeff Kitty.
When Scott went to Worcester, Gannon was still a college, but it's all the way up to a university now.
Oh, my apologies. My apologies.
I did play in Scott's dad's tournaments. Small world enough. All right. Well, thanks for having me, PAO and everybody else. Josh, I love the flag in the background. Sweet. I love it. I'm going to roll right into my topic for the night too. So, you know, we can make this, you know, somewhat, you know, active. If anybody has any questions, I think Matt, they can raise their hand or type it in or things like that. Or I don't care, quite frankly, if they just interject. We don't have too big of a crowd, but it probably be a little bit harder that way. So I took for a topic to differentiate yourself and talking about how to differentiate yourself. Before I get into that, just, you know, hope everybody's having a good off season. Mother Nature's being kind enough and giving us a little bit of an off season with this weather. So hopefully you're taking it as an opportunity to recharge your batteries and hopefully to improve yourself too. Add to your skill set and your toolbox. Anything you can do in the off season to do that. And obviously you are doing that with doing things like this. So congratulations for doing so. And thanks for joining tonight. I'm obviously thrilled to be joined with the crew that we've got tonight with Jonathan, Scott, and Jimmy. Anytime I can be a part of a group like this, I feel honored for sure. Some of the best club professionals in the country. And Fortunately, I get to call them friends too. I tell this story all the time. I don't know my wife's cell phone number. I just push a button on my phone. But 610-642-9820 is the phone number to the Marion Pro Shop, and 215-247-6001 will get you to Philly Cricket. So that tells you how often I call those numbers. So I'm sure I'll take some notes tonight too when they get talking. All right. And I think you'll find what Jonathan has to talk about tonight with the PI to be really informative and kind of give you a good baseline. So when you are involved with PGA searches, especially the executive search, you have an understanding of what PI does, what it can do for, how a search committee might use it, and even how you might be able to use it in your favor when jobs are listed and they tell you what you're looking for. So enough of that. I will roll right into my topic. How many of you, well, it's hard to say, I can't see everybody's face, but how many people know about the Purple Cow story? And I give Jimmy full credit for the Purple Cow. I had never heard the Purple Cow story until I heard Jimmy talk about it. So I'll just give you, if you haven't heard of it, I'll give it to you. If you have heard of it, just deal with me for a second here. So let's say you drive to work every day, you drive the same path every day to work. About halfway to work, you pass this huge farm, hundreds of acres. And the one part that you drive by has got a field with cows. It's got 1,000 cows in it. Okay. And that one particular day, you happen to notice one really cool cow. It's got like a cool patch over his eye, a couple other markings. That's a cool looking cow. So next day you don't work. Okay. So then the day after that, you're driving to work. Do you think you could find that same cow in that field of 1,000 cows? Probably not, right? But the point of this is, what if it was purple? You're going to be able to find a purple cow pretty quickly. So the point of this is, how do we make ourselves purple in a field that looks like ours? Okay, so everybody that's on this call tonight, I was looking at first, I think everybody looks pretty similarly, and unfortunately the golf business does look pretty similar, vast majority male. Okay, I think it's 1,000 or just less than 1,000 of our 28,000 are female. So right away, we already look the same. Mostly Caucasian, unfortunately. We don't have a ton of diversity. And as it relates to assistant pros, especially assistant pros here in the Northeast, male, Caucasian. Let's say you're relatively clean cut, relatively well dressed. We're all wearing the same type of clothes. We're all pretty decent at golf, and we all love the game. So we all look kind of the same. And especially if you're applying for a job without being in front of somebody, you look even more the same because you're on paper. Whether you're a PGM student or not, that might differentiate some differentiation, but we kind of look the same. Okay, so what are you going to do to make yourself stand out? Either by appearance, by reputation, in presentation form, so resume, portfolio, etc. What are you going to do to make yourself stand out? And I say sometimes this needs to be a conscious effort in trying to make yourself unique. You've got to think about it, and you've got to try to make yourself stand out. Sometimes reputations are developed from hard work or success, not derived from intent or purpose. So I'll give you a couple examples here. So we've got Jimmy and Scott, coming up to speak, and each of them has reputations. Jimmy has several reputations, but we'll talk about all the good stuff here first. Just kidding. Let's say Jimmy, one of the things that I think he's most noted for is his reputation as a travel guru. He's on a trip right now with members. I assume you're with members, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's on with members, and he does tons of trips with members. And I'm sure, and it's developed him as a reputation for this, running all these successful trips. And I'm sure he didn't set out when he did his first trip at one of his previous clubs that, all right, if I do this and do this really well, people are going to call me from all over the country saying, how do you set these trips up? Tell me what your secrets to success are. But so it kind of, from success, he developed a reputation and, one of his purple aspects. Scott, I think, for me, when I think of Scott, one of the first things I think of him as a coach. Like I said, his father was a coach. He was a golf and soccer coach. His brother's actually a coach. But I think Scott has a lot of coach in him too. whether it's coaching his students, juniors, or adults that he takes lessons with, or coaching his team. I think he looks at it more from a coaching view in my view of Scott. And I don't think he set out to say, okay, I want to have this coach aspect to him. I think it's from his successes of coaching students and coaching his team that he's developed kind of this reputation, coach and developer and mentor. So both of those, I think, were not purposeful, but from a product of their success. I think sometimes these purple aspects or differentiation points kind of fall in your lap. I use this one all the time for myself. So I was an assistant in upstate New York, working at a club where we didn't have a director of instruction. My boss taught a fair amount. And then we also had a female assistant professional who did, I'd say, the lion's share of teaching for women, all the clinics and women's programs she ran. So there wasn't a ton of teaching for me to do. And I was playing one day with some members, and one of the members in the group was the best player at the club, really probably the best player in upstate New York over the last 30 years, pro or amateur. We're pretty close to it, if not. And really good ball striker, played college golf at Auburn, really good mid-am player, but not the best putter. And typical for a round for me at the time, I hit it like puke, and I made everything to probably shoot 77. And he said, Jeff, you're a really good putter. I'd like to, work with you on my putting. So I gave him a putting lesson. He did nicely with it. He took a couple more. And meantime, he started spreading people. He said, take a putting lesson with Jeff. Take a putting lesson with Jeff. To the point that, that my last year there, I gave like 120 putting lessons. Now, I was still kind of beating myself up. I wanted to give lessons to have people drive it farther and straighter and things like that. But my boss pointed out, he goes, you're helping people play better golf. You're helping people have fun. You're making money teaching. But fast forward, 20 plus years, one of our members from Monroe came down to play Aronimink a couple years ago. And I hadn't seen this guy since 1999. And he came into the shop and he said, you still a really good putting teacher? And I said, wow, that stuck. That was my purple, thing about being purple at Monroe was, I was the putting guy. And even to this day, I still feel like I have that a little bit, even here at Aronimink, even not teaching as much as I did then. So sometimes it just falls in your lap. But the bottom line with however these purple aspects come about, you want to develop skills and reputations to the point that people are talking about you instead of you having to talk about yourself. Okay, so if somebody's talking about you, hopefully in a good light, they're going to remember things about you, and it's going to spread too. So when you're in a position to interview or be considered to interview for a job, or be it the next assistant job you get, or a first-time head professional job, or the next head professional job after that, hopefully people are talking about you as much as you're trying to get people. You're trying to promote yourself with it too. So if you feel like you have to have a little more intent to figure out what makes you purple, I'm just going to kind of give you a few ideas here. So be strategic about creating differentiating characteristics. Figure out what you love in the business. What do you really like to do? There's all different aspects. That's what I love about our job, is that there's so many different aspects of what we do. I couldn't do the same thing every day. I'm not built that way. And I love going from task to task, and, every day looks a little bit different, but try to figure out what you really like to do, and figure out maybe how you can become known in that category. Choose something you love about our business and figure out a way to be known for it. I think it's easier to have success when you're doing something that you really like. So I always use Mike Shannon as an example. If any of you guys know Mike Shannon, who's a noted putting instructor. Mike Shannon didn't start out necessarily just in the teaching space. He was a traditional, green grass golf professional. He was the head pro at Isleworth. And he was the head pro at Isleworth back before, the golf capital of the world moved to Jupiter, Florida, when everybody was living in Orlando and playing either out of Isleworth or Lake Nona. He was at Isleworth. And he, realized pretty quickly, he said, what, I'm never going to get to teach you. Because half my members are on tour and they all have their own coaches. But he had the idea. He said, what if I learned everything there is to know about putting? He said, so I could be at least offer them something for their game. At the time, there probably weren't a ton of, dedicated putting coaches. And so he went out after that And he ended up becoming his full-time job as a putting coach, be it on tour and traveling around and doing that. So he went after something that to be, have a specialty in it, and ended up being, what he does full time. So I always think that's a great example. All right, and some other areas of that you could seek to be, a specialist at, or to be known for, to be purple for, tournament ops. These are all things I think, are all going to kind of fall kind of in our normal role as an assistant pro. Tournament ops, there's tons of things that could differentiate yourself in tournament ops. Be the best calligrapher in the area, make the best scoreboards, with the plotter printers and publisher and all these different programs. You make the best scoreboards, and the members go back from other clubs and say, wow, that guy at XYZ club makes the best scoreboards that I've seen. Create the most unique tournament experiences. Golf Genius has allowed us to get more creative with communication tools and real-time scoring. So creating things that have lasting memories for people with tournaments. Having a strong rules knowledge. It's a big part of tournament ops is rules knowledge. It's going to come from me being a little bit of a rules guy. But it's an opportunity to be a go-to person on the staff. If somebody comes in, especially in a tough situation, during a tournament or something, and they come in and you're able to offer a good ruling, a good timely ruling with confidence, you're probably going to be a go-to person for a lot of things for that member. You're going to give them, and the opposite side, if you give a bad ruling, the person's probably not going to come to you when they're asking about, when they can play in certain times of day or when their children can play. So I think, rules knowledge is another way to differentiate yourself that kind of falls under tournament ops. Club fitting, being a club fitting expert, I think it's a huge opportunity as an assistant. A lot of our clubs have, dedicated instructors, one, if not several. Not a lot of clubs, Jimmy's kind of in the minority. He's got somebody that does, most of his fitting for him. But not a lot of clubs do. So having somebody that's really good and really knowledgeable about fitting is a huge value. Ron Pine, who worked for us for a couple of years, who's now a head pro in the area. Ron's an excellent fitter, loves fitting, really into the tech side of it, very knowledgeable about shafts. He's an excellent fitter. And to the point of this, after he left in January of last year, one of my members, called me up and said, I was thinking about getting fitting, but Ron left. Am I still able to get fit? And I kind of chuckled. I'm like, well, we've been giving less, fittings for, 12 years before Ron got here. We're still able to give fittings, but to the point that he left, that people thought, we were going to not be able to give good fittings anymore. So I think it's another excellent opportunity for an assistant to make a mark at not only at their facility, but, outside the area too, or outside of their club. Club repair, same kind of thing. Not everybody wants to do it, but having somebody that can do it makes you a value. Ryan Boytz is on the call tonight. Ryan, a younger assistant, 23 years old, came here last year, brand new. He had worked at Golf Galaxy, Golf Galaxy, I think, either in high school or college, and done a fair amount of club repair and reshafting. I gave it to him, ran with it. He's our club repair guy. So he became purple, at least to me, but, I make sure members know that, Ryan's, really good at club repair, and he can take care of this for us without us sending it out or sending it back to a company. Junior golf, there's people in our area that have made their mark of being purple. You think back to, as far back as a guy like Harry Hammond, to being a junior golf leader to, our most recent junior golf, national award winner recipient, Andy Miller, making themselves purple. So it's another area. Playing ability can make you purple, and I think we should all strive to be as purple as we can be in playing ability. But obviously, somebody that can play an elite level has something that a lot of other people don't. So, a few other things. Maybe you're somebody that's really into golf history or golf course architecture or agronomy. I think they have things to offer a club. Especially for guest experience, or, especially, like Scott's really good at club history, and, Marion has more history than a lot of clubs. So it's a big part of a guest going to Marion is maybe learning about some of the history. Forget about, the plaque on 18 or the plaque that's on number 11. There's a lot of other history that somebody, might want to know about while they're there. And Scott's really good at telling the stories from the Marion history, and that and he's had assistants that are really good at that too. You know, Chandler was really into to golf history and especially Marion's history, and that helped, you know, separate him too. Golf course architecture or agronomy. You know, if you're playing golf with members and you're able to talk about what a switchback is, or what a redan, a punch bowl, or something like that with architecture, or if you're able to tell, you know, why it's bad when bent grass and POA infiltrates into the primary roughs, or you know, why POA struggles in the summer months, anything like that. I think it, you know, helps separate yourself and make you an expert of something, and especially if it's something that you're passionate about or very interested in. And then as you further along in your career, if you're, you know, head professional and going to green committee and golf committee meetings and knowing that, I think it'll, you know, help present yourself in a better light too. Teaching and coaching, obviously an easy bucket and something that we talk a lot about. Another way to separate yourself, but so we concentrated on some others. Merchandising, another one. I don't think anybody got in the business to be the best shirt salesman, but it's obviously a big part of our operations, especially the three of our operations that are on the call tonight. So if somebody has some expertise in that too, that's great. And then, you know, a few other things: your appearance, your dress, remaining physically fit, I think are all things that can help separate yourself. You know, we're in a first impression business, like it or not. We're also representing our clubs, you know, both at the club, at tournaments, or even when you run into somebody at Wegmans. You know, you're still going to be, you know, Joe Schmo from XYZ club. That's what they're going to think of first a lot of times. So how you present yourself is going to help differentiate yourself too. And then finally, I think some experiences, you know, can make you purple as well. Where you've worked, what clubs you've worked at will help separate yourself. Even what regions of the country or the world might make you purple. You know, I use this example from our own club. Cameron, who's on the call, came to me after his first, you know, toward the end of his first year as an assistant, and he said, "All right, you know, should I work in Jupiter or Naples for the winter?" You know, kind of being the two most common places that seasonal assistants go. I said, "You know what? You're young. You got no ties. Why not do something different?" He's like, "You know, like Palm Springs or Scottsdale." I said, "You know, why not something bigger like Australia or New Zealand?" So sure enough, that night he goes home and he gets in contact with the pro at Curry Cliffs. I always forget, Curry Cliffs or Cape Kidnappers. It's one of the two. I forget every time. But he reached out to him through email, and I'm telling you, it wasn't a day and a half later that he had a job opportunity to go to New Zealand to work for the season. And, you know, he's used it. He just had an interview experience last week or last week and a half that became relevant. And, you know, and maybe it's a situation where he might have to move, and they said, you know, would you be willing to move? I mean, because he moved halfway across the world, or all the way across the world for a job too. So he, you know, moving to New Jersey or something else is going to be easy. But I think it just gives him something else to talk about and something to be different, something to make him purple. Who you've worked with, you know, your directors of golf, your head professionals, your directors of instruction, and even general managers and superintendents, people that you've worked with, I think can help separate you too and help provide opportunities. But I view this I personally view it as being more important oftentimes than the club that you work at. The quality oftentimes go hand in hand, meaning that a lot of times the better professionals are working at some of the better clubs. But it's not always the case. Sometimes there's some professionals that aren't quite as good working at great clubs, and even more often, I think there's oftentimes great professionals working at clubs that might be lesser known. You know, I'm a perfect example of that. You know, my biggest influence in my professional career, you know, unless you're from, you know, outside, unless you're from Rochester or Buffalo or that kind of immediate area, you probably haven't heard of Monroe Golf Club or maybe even Jim Merva, but he was a huge influence on me. And I also got to work at Pine Valley. And that's not to say, you know, Charlie's a fabulous golf pro. He's an example of a fabulous golf pro working at a fabulous club. But, you know, sometimes there's some hidden gems out there too, of people that could teach you an awful lot and provide you with great experiences and set you up for your career that maybe not be as obvious as some others. So Try to find the work experiences that you think will align with the type of job that you would like to pursue and the type of professional that you'd like to be. So make your work experience, make it relevant. You know, if you see yourself working at that you'd really like to be the head pro or director of golf at a big club, maybe a multi facility club, 36, 45 holes, then working at, you know, for Jim Smith or Scott and I at a Marion or a Cricket or a Baltusrol or a Canoebrook would probably be a place you'd want to work. But if, you know, working at a more intimate club, you know, that doesn't do as many rounds interests you, then working at a Bitterman or a Gulf Mills or someplace like that would probably be a more relevant experience. So try to make them line up as best you can, especially as you're getting further down the line of your career, as you're trying to figure out where you'd want to be. So we've got these two pros that I think a lot of on here, and I think both of them are purple in a ton of ways. And I think their purple has continued to develop over the years. So I just say, you know, from my members that go over to Cricket to play in their tournaments, or when their members come here and I get to talk of them, we only have a couple overlap members, so we don't have a lot of shared members. But the things that I hear and what I notice are, you know, for Jimmy for being purple, or, you know, how organized he is. Organized like crazy. If you've been in his office, it's awfully dark in his office, but you can still tell that it's pretty organized. And that organization, you know, it goes through in a lot of different areas of his operation, be it tournament administration, golf ops, presentation of the shop, all the work areas. I mean, you don't go to a place where you don't feel at Cricket where you don't feel like Jimmy's thumbprint of being organized isn't affected. And he'll tell you a story, even or he has told a story before, that his organization and cleanliness actually helped him get a head pro job. One of his jobs, he had to take the owner of the club in his car someplace else, and his car was organized to a T, and the guy took notice of how organized his car was. So that's how organized he is. His knowledge of the golf industry and multifaceted, you know, be it in his COO role, you know, and his head professional / director of golf role is so deep. His honesty and sometimes just being blunt, I like it. Like I said, I call him when I need opinions, and I want strong opinions too. I like somebody that's like that. So as a manager and a friend, I'd want that honesty, and I'm sure his teammates that have worked with him appreciate that as well. I talked about his travel, his love of the game. Jimmy loves to play golf. He loves to travel with his members and play golf. I mean, he plays a ton of golf, and with somebody, all the responsibilities that he has to play as much golf as he does, I think is awesome. And I think it's a great example how well connected he is, both Jim and Scott. And I don't think this is something that just falls in your lap either. I think this is something that takes effort to make sure you're staying connected with, you know, different aspects of the industry. Well spoken and confident, you know, like I think how we'd see a leader to be. And his strong financial acumen. I mean, he owns his own golf shop. And I don't, and I've never owned my own golf shop. So when assistant pros that have worked with me go on and own their own shop, every one of them, I think, has called Jimmy as soon as they've left to ask for, you know, kind of best practices and things to look out for. And I know I appreciate the guidance that he's given them on that. But he's a tremendous resource for that because he's terrific at running his business. And then his creativity. He's never afraid to try something that would be considered different in our industry. And he's done a lot of things that aren't industry standard. He's done several of them first, you know, from work weeks. You know, we're all talking about this work-life balance, and Jimmy's been working doing assistant pro schedules like nurses for a long time now, for a number of years. And I think he was the first one that I knew of that did it and has done it well. He's not afraid to do something different if he thinks it's the right thing for his team, his members, and his operation. And that's something that takes continued effort. It's easy to do the same things over and over. And I think, you know, one of his best purple characteristics is he's always looking to make things better and keep doing it. So I'm just highlighting a few of the things that I think make both of these guys as purple as they are. Same thing for Scott. I think Scott's the ultimate host. He makes you feel like gold. He makes everybody feel like gold when he's there. I said it in his video for when he won the national award, that He plays mayor better than anybody I know. He's out there pressing the flesh, his term that he's always talking about. He makes people feel great and makes their visit to Marion feel special. I think he's ultra creative as well. Again, I think you have to work hard at this, always trying to think of the next best idea. Some of the examples that, I just remember from the top of my head for Scott and his creativity. He did a short game member guest that I thought was one of the coolest ideas. I did it over at the West Course and kind of involved a wedge manufacturer, but I thought it was a really neat idea. I think he only did it once, but it went over really well, and the members were talking about it, about the experience they had that night. He did a Peter Millar shopping experience at the club that is pretty common now, but he was the first one to really do it. He turned the clubhouse, and it wasn't for a tournament or anything. He just brought in a ton of product and provided this cool shopping experience throughout the club that I thought was cool. Many of you guys heard about the virtual masters that he thought up during when we were shut down for COVID in 2020. I know a whole bunch of us copied it and provided a cool experience for our members while we were shut down and staying engaged. We did a fashion rules event here at Aronimink that he had a big part of. And I say one of my favorite ideas that he came up with was his range picking building on the range. When they redid their range and built their learning facility, he built this cool building for the range picker cart. It actually, you drive into it and drive out of it. And I told him it was his best idea once. I think he was taken back that he's had better ideas than that, but I thought it was really cool. A couple more things. His historian that I talked to you about his knowledge of the club and the game itself, his development of staff, and Jim's too. Jim's a fabulous developer of staff and helping people move on to their goals and their next steps in their careers. His connection to the industry as well, we have to work hard at. Coach and instructor, I talked about that. And then I put it last because, I don't think it's hard to believe I put it last. I mean, he won a national award for his merchandising, ability and that he and his team do. But, the business that they've built in the 20 years that he's been there is just ridiculous. And so I think that does make him purple. But for me, a lot of those other things I think are more important. And I think he would probably agree too. So kind of in wrapping this up, think about what can help separate you. What can help get you to your next step faster by having people talk about you. And if you feel like you've already got some purple attributes, keep working on them, make them stronger. It's kind of like, if you're a good putter, keep working on your putting because you want it to be your strength, but we want to work on our weaknesses too. But keep working on those purple things so you can keep people talking about them. And if you feel like you don't have enough purple, seek something out. Maybe ask your coworkers or ask your boss, what do you think I do well that I could start highlighting and start making a focus that, when I do start interviewing for jobs, I can say, these are my strengths and this is what I think separates me from other people that are going to be interviewing for this job. So I don't know how long I went, but I bet Cam, I went over my timeline. So sorry about that. But if anybody's got any questions or want to add any commentary to this or Matt, however we want to do this, I'm obviously happy to talk further.
Anybody in the group have any follow-up questions for Jeff? No. All right, buddy. Thanks a lot. That was awesome. Oh, Jacob, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to ask a question. I know the answer to it, but for everybody else in the room, Jeff, when you're interviewing assistants, what do you look for personality traits or what could make them a purple cow that would make them a successful golf pro in your operation and also others?
All right, Jake, good question. I think whether we're interviewing interns or assistants, I think that the first thing that I want to know is that they love the game. Love the game first. They love to play the game. I think it's kind of overlooked sometimes that we look for other things, but I think it's the only thing that gets us through, holiday weekends and missing July 4th picnics and things like that we get to look forward to. Jimmy's down in Streamsong right now to look forward to member trips and the real perks of it too. So the love of the game and the love to play the game is first, but then after that I'm looking for things that are going to help make me purple. help make me successful in our operation. Looking for tools that can round out our staff, whatever that might be. When we hired Ron a couple years ago, we were in need of somebody that could really get stuff done, and somebody that could, the club fitting was a big aspect that we needed. So I was looking for that. So I say sometimes it's like fielding a baseball team. You can't have, 3 or 4 third basemen. You got to have a shortstop. You got to have a pitcher. You got to have people play different positions. So I think it depends oftentimes on what we're looking for. But first and foremost for us is going to be somebody that just loves the game and loves to play it too. And then looking for different skill sets. And, also depends on if we're looking for an entry-level assistant versus somebody that I need to be more of a leader and more of a lead type assistant. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else? Oh, Leela?
Hi, Jeff. I was just wondering, kind of outside of those traditional PGA member characteristics that we all go through that you mentioned, as far as being a Purple Cow, is there anything, that may not necessarily be a PGA member taught trait or something that's not specific to golf that you feel like in the future will be really valuable, or is trending, an opportunity for somebody to get really good at another area?
Yeah, I think a trait that we all need to have is we are in the service industry, that we have to be service-minded people. We have to be thinking about, how can we make our members or guests or both their experiences better. So people that have that in their mind, and somebody that can, kind of see in advance. So looking for traits or looking for examples of when somebody has been able to do that. I think it's one of Scott's questions. It might be one of Brendan's questions too, but, give me an example of either really good customer service that you've received or that you've given. And Scott's got one of the great stories of all time for that, but that's for another time. But for a staff member giving great customer service. But I think that's something outside of our, our normal training traits that I think we're all looking for, for that. And then, it's hard necessarily to train a mindset of being service-minded necessarily. I think it needs to be a little more inherent that somebody wants to do it, because not everybody does.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? No? All right. Thanks, buddy. What's that? Somebody else have something?
No, I just said thanks.
Oh, sure. You're welcome. Well, thank you. Fantastic. Oh, next up, Mr. Scott and I talk a little bit about networking. Scott, it's all yours, bud.
Thanks, Jeff. And Jeff, that was a phenomenal presentation. No surprise. I think that's kind of how you go about your business each and every day, trying to get better. And you actually kind of captured yourself in talking about the Purple Cow and all the things that you do, and always driving to do the right thing, to do whatever you can to not only help what you do at Aronimink, but also, across the section and certainly on a national level, what you're doing with your involvement in the rules of the game. So you're giving back in so many ways, and people recognize that and see that. And it's nice to be a Purple Cow when you're giving back to so many people. So thank you for that. And thank you for your friendship. I'd also like to thank Jeff Surratt, Leela Mackey, and Matt Fry. In the last couple of years, you guys have really been challenged, and it's just been amazing to see the section come together and do the things that you've done to, work through all the ups and downs of things related to COVID. It's been an interesting ride, and you guys have just done a phenomenal job. So thank you for that. And then lastly, thanks to Cam and Keith for putting this together tonight. I think I'll mention it in my presentation, but this is one of the things that we all need to be doing, kind of getting better when we're not at work. So anyway, my topic tonight is networking. And I really believe that if you enjoy your job, that you're going to be networking all the time in our industry. We have a very front-facing industry. We're out and about with a lot of people. And if you really like it and you're passionate and you're out front and you're meeting people and trying to remember names and things like that, you're going to be networking. I believe that you have to have a passion to network. You have to have a desire to get out there, a desire to be better tomorrow than you are today. And I also believe that all of us have to make sacrifices in order to develop a strong network. So I thought I'd give you the definition of networking. It's the action or process of interacting with others to exchange information and to develop professional or social contacts. What I think of in networking is actually a little bit different, because I think the connotation with networking can be, oh, he's trying to slide something through, he's trying to find a back door into a job or something like that. So I kind of believe that networking is about building relationships. And if you look at it that way and you build strong relationships and relationships that you can trust when you need them the most, I think that's what we're doing in the golf industry, and one of the things that's so important to get ahead. So in building a relationship, words that are tied to that are agreement, association, union, blending, coming together, unification, and friendship. Those are all words that are tied to building relationships. So I think I've been very, very lucky in my career, growing up in a small town in Ohio, to end up where I am and to have met all of the people that I've met along the way. I remember my first year at Marion, I did a kind of calculated how many people I met, and I calculated that I met approximately 7,000 new people my first year at the job at Marion. We have a high number of guests and a lot of members, but those are relationships that I'm still, many of the relationships that I have Marion started way back then. So there are all kinds of examples of building relationships day in and day out. Some of the obvious ones are doing this tonight, attending a section meeting where you're meeting golf professionals that are doing the same things, that are having, talks like we're having tonight about how do we get better. I remember, when I was coming up and through, having a network of friends that, I had relationships with people that I could really talk about, hey, do you think I should make this move? Do you think I should go there? What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And it's all about helping each other and developing that thing. But also talk about playing in section events. I really believe that over the years, especially when I played in a lot of section events, I met a lot of people, and certainly in the Philadelphia section early on. I think also attending a national event. The PGA show is a little bit different this year, but I'd love to know how many people that, I've met or I've introduced some of my staff members to at the PGA show. And in some way, somehow that's helped them expand and build strong relationships. A relationship, I think one of the things in our industry that's so important is that everybody's name. Bill Strasbaugh was one of my mentors. He used to come up and give presentations at the Country Club of York when I was early on in my career as a head professional. And Coach always knew the names of people. And he knew a lot beyond just the name. He knew a lot about their families, and he knew a lot about them as people. So I think spending time there, developing real strong relationships, certainly within your club and within your area, that's really, really important. And I also think there are some relationships that are kind of built and they're hidden. And it happened to us the other night. We had a chance to go to a basketball game at Villanova a couple of weeks ago. And Keith Clausen noticed that one of our members was at the game. And he made it a point to say hello to our member, who was actually a member that lives in the state of Connecticut, who had driven down to see the game. But our member was very, very impressed that Keith took the time to seek him out and to say hello. And what happened was it turned into a lesson series for Keith later this year. And I think that's really, really something important that's done there. And that's a relationship that's building. And I strongly believe that as Keith continues to do that at Marion, and as our assistants do those types of things, those little things that are hidden, I believe that someday Peter Harding is somebody that Keith Clausen's going to be able to ask for help, maybe to write a letter. Who knows where he will be able to use Peter Harding, but I think Keith taking the time to do that and to writing a personal note the next morning saying that it was great to see him, that's an amazing thing to do. And I think it's one of those little hidden things about building relationships that's so important. And I guarantee you that Mr. Harding, who is really, really connected at the university here at Villanova, is going to share that story with a lot of people that have the opportunity to play golf at Marion. And I just think it puts Keith in that purple cow zone. That's something that he did, and it's perceived as something very, very positive by Peter Harding. Another one is I always like to watch what our assistants are doing when we host guest events or when we have guest play or we run a big member guest event. They're used to going around and seeing really well done member guest events. And I believe that when they come to our place, our job first and foremost is to make sure that our members are enjoying it, but also that the guests that they invite, which are so special to them, and they have a strong relationship with them, that we put on a show and we take great interest in them personally when they come to participate at our club. And you just never know when somebody from another club might be in a position to help you, because quite frankly, they may be looking to hire a golf professional someday. And I just think there are so many hidden opportunities there to do the little things and do the little things well, because the little things do matter and they all add up. So I would encourage you to, watch for the hidden opportunities to build a relationship, because they exist. They're all over the place. And I know, Jeff, you had a story there that happened to me. And I can tell you that when I started my job at Marion, I had done something at the Country Club of York. It actually was a member from the Philadelphia Cricket Club that I had done something pretty nice for in 1999. And a year later, I got the job at Marion, and that member at Philly Cricket told about 100 of my members what I had done. And that was kind of a helpful thing to me as I came into a new job and was trying to get my feet on the ground and, get relationships going within Marion Golf Club. Got a couple of things here. I think all of you should give consideration to what I'm going to call your circle. I think your circle is different than everybody else's circle. And I think you've got to do three things to your circle. Number one, you have to understand your circle. Number two, you need to own your circle. And number three, you need to expand your circle. So I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about, understanding, owning, and expanding your circle, because I think it's really, really helpful to you as you move forward in your career. And I think it's something that it doesn't happen and then stop happening. I think it happens actually more as you move along in the industry. And I'll hit on a few of those things as I go along here. But the first thing is to understand your circle. Where do you really want to live and work? For some people, they have a real clear idea of what they're looking for. And if they want to stay in the area where they grew up, I think that's fantastic, as long as they know that. I think some people are more willing to go outside of the area. But I think if you understand your family, what does your family like? Does your family value having you live within a couple of hours of Philadelphia? Or are they used to you moving around and working, at a greater distance from where you are? I think your significant other or spouse has a lot to do with understanding your circle. My wife told me early on that I couldn't take her out to a real rural area. She needed to be around a city. She wanted to be where there were, lots of things to do. So, we really focused on that, and that was a high priority in understanding my circle. Some people are very nomadic, and Jeff referenced this earlier. We have a former superintendent that worked at Marion who went to Chicago for a while and worked at Shore Acres, and then he went out to Tara Iti in New Zealand. And I think he's right now interviewing for a job in Australia. But his circle is much different than others might like, but it certainly works for him, and he really enjoys expanding, and he's not afraid of a larger circle. Doesn't make it right or wrong for somebody else, but for him, he kind of likes that. The next thing I think you need to do in terms of your circle is you need to own it. You need to own your circle. And I know that Jim and Jeff own their circles. So as I was going through the industry, my father, who was a golf professional and a coach, challenged me early on. And I'd like each of you to do this. You don't have to do it now, but maybe it's easy. I'd like you to name to yourself, you don't need to share these with anybody, but just write down who you think the 5 best assistant golf professionals are in the Philadelphia section right now. So take time and try to develop that list. Because what you want to strive for is to be the best. You want to compare. If you're going down a teaching track, you want to find out who those 5 best teaching professionals are in the section. And you want to be one of those 5 best. Or 3 best, whatever number you want to put on it, 10 best. But then your circle may become larger, and it may happen quickly. We have an example of somebody moving on shortly. He's on the call tonight. He's just taken a head professional position at Hudson National, Brandon. Congratulations to Brandon. But Brandon's going to go up into the Mets section, and all of a sudden, his circle got larger. So what I'm asking him to do is take the 5 best here in Philadelphia and then go and observe who are the 5 best head professionals under the age of 40 in the Met section. So back to owning your circle. Pay attention to those that are doing well and look for those who you think are really going to end up in a good place. So then if you can take your circle and make it larger. I did that. My father challenged me to do that, make a larger circle and pay attention on a national level and find out who did I think when I was young and learning in the industry, who was going to make it and who was going to end up in really good jobs. So Brendan Walsh was a natural for me, the pro at the country club. Tony Pancake was a close personal friend of mine who's at Crooked Stick. Bill Steins, who was at Scioto for all those years. Those people, those were people that I was looking at and trying to learn a lot about what they were doing to get ahead. So again, understand your circle, what makes you tick, where are you going to excel. Start owning your circle. So then as you work your way up, I think it's really smart to look at people. The 5 best, I wrote down the 5 best head pros under the age of 40, the 5 best teaching professionals under the age of 40. Who are they in our section? Who are those top professionals, and what are they doing, and what did they do to get where they are? What are the little things that they do that separate them from others? Pay attention to that. That's owning your circle and taking responsibility and motivating yourself to look for leaders and learn from them. And then if you can take those 5 that you maybe listed from the Philly section, now see if any of those 5, if you go nationally, do any of those 5 stay in the top 5 if you go nationally? Maybe 3 of the 5 do. Maybe 1 of the 5 make it. But pay attention to people outside your section, what they're doing and where they're working, and ask them about their career path and their track. And then look at the head pros again, I say that, look at the people that are 10 years older than you are that are head professionals. What did they do to get where they are? And what are they doing in their current role that's going to help them get to something even better than where they are today? I'm really proud of a lot of the people that have worked in the section and watch them. And I had a great opportunity to go down to CASA in the middle of December and participate in a group that I'm in. And we had a younger group called the Taplow group. Just so impressed by the people in that age category. So, I've always tried to, look ahead. I still to this day, and I'm highly focused right now on people that are heading towards retirement. So those that are, 63 to 70 years old, I want to know exactly what they're doing and how are they ending their careers and making it great, because that's what I want. But I've also got to turn and look the other direction now and look down. What are the people 10 years younger than I doing? Why are they so successful? Where are all these great ideas coming from? So that's owning your circle. Ask yourself how you can establish a relationship with people in the industry. Ask yourself that question. That we are lucky to have an industry where we all want to help each other. So don't be afraid of that. Reach out, build that relationship, and you'll be surprised how much they can help you. And the last part I want to say about your circle and owning your own circle is identifying the best. Identifying the best is always beneficial. Listen to the people that rarely complain. Pay attention to how they work when things get a little difficult and how they turn the table to something positive and move on. It's a really, really important thing to observe and look for. And don't be afraid to write names of people down that you admire and reach out to them for help. And the last thing on your circle, the third part of it, is how do you expand your circle? Because that is, in a sense, networking. It is building relationships. How do you expand it? So learning opportunities. I observed something really, really special this summer. We had the opportunity to host the Pennsylvania Amateur, and Grant, who's on the call tonight, did a phenomenal job helping Mark Peterson with course setup. So much so that Mark took the time to write a note to, our people at Marion about how much Grant did for him to help him become more comfortable with hole locations and things like that. But I know that Grant, in working with Pennsylvania Golf and Mark Peterson and his team, he stuck out, and they were grateful to that. So I think GAP is a great opportunity, provides a great opportunity for us if we're running team matches to really stand out. Women's Golf Association of Philadelphia, taking interest in what's going on there. Really, really important. You never know where that's going to come back around, and you can expand your network. You never know when somebody there might be, speaking on your behalf when it comes time to advance your career. I believe that there are lots of people in the game that can help you expand your network or help you build a stronger group with great relationships. I think of all the golf companies. I think of the allied associations. I think of the First Tee. I think of Golf Bridge. I think of the USGA. All of these are great opportunities if you take the time and invest in yourself to expand and build stronger relationships. It's going to help you and your circle become stronger and stronger, and your circle all of a sudden will have greater reach. Another thing, and I love that all of you are doing this tonight, knowledge is a great differentiator in our industry and in anything that you do. How do you expand your knowledge base? We've been blessed to have this technology in COVID where we haven't had a chance to, go in person, but virtual learning has been a great thing. I wish we could get back to more of the in-person. And I will talk to you. I've got a 25-year-old daughter who's, on her way to, I feel, a nice career. And she's gaining knowledge about her company virtually, and she hasn't done a lot of in person. And I'm concerned that she's not getting in front of people and meeting and shaking hands and showing her personality. You can only do so much of that virtually. So I talk about expanding and being the Pied Piper. A lot of that's in person. I always, observe golf professionals, and I love watching them interact when I'm on their or at their facility. I love watching how they speak and talk to their members and how they make them feel. Another way to expand your circle is to really think about what you're doing for self-development on your time, not on the club's time, but what are you doing when people aren't looking? If you're doing a lot there and really developing yourself and learning, reading books, reading about the industry, getting on, the various Instagram sites to learn about teaching or whatever it may be, that's a great way for you to expand your circle. Another thing that I think is important, it's not a must, but I think it's important that you look to work in another section at some point in your career. We have a great section in Philadelphia, but there are also lots of great places to work. And I say this, you just might like what you find. I was in the Northern Ohio section as an assistant golf professional, transferred to the Middle Atlantic PGA and loved it. That got me to the Philadelphia section, and I've loved it here and see no reason to leave. But if I had a closed mind and wasn't willing to venture outside of the Northern Ohio PGA, I don't think Marion happens. But anyway, the last thing I will say about your circle, and it's really, really important as you expand your circle, and that is your bridges. Your bridges are really, really important. And as you move in the industry, be gracious when you leave your job and say thanks. And maintain the relationship with the people that have helped you get to where you are. If you're working for the right people, they're going to want you to advance and make improvements in your career. And the other thing on the bridges, you just never know when having those bridges intact is going to come back to help you out in the long run. Can't emphasize that enough. Build strong bridges, say thanks, be gracious, be appreciative, and be straightforward with people when you're looking to make a move to better yourself. In my experience, people have only tried to help me advance in my career. So that's what I have on networking. I really think that the section that I talked about on your circle and understanding it, owning it, and expanding it is really, really something to give serious consideration to.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Anybody have any questions for Scott? Go, Keith.
Thanks, Scott. That was awesome. For someone like you and Jeff and Jim who have big circles, how do you nurture that circle and how do you stay in contact, especially as it gets larger? What are some of the things you would recommend?
I love using the phone. I love in person, obviously, but I like using the phone. Every once in a while, I'll send a note to a person. There are all kinds of ways to do it. I sent a thank you note to a company that had sponsored the Northern Ohio Assistance Championship one time and complimented them not only on supporting the section, but also complimenting them on how they ran their business. And from that, this was with Titleist, I believe that my network in that company quickly grew to 25 to 30 people that I knew within the company. And that helped me tremendously over the last, like 33 or 34 years. and I've been loyal to them. But Keith, there are so many ways to do that. I think sometimes somebody plays well in a section event or does something nationally that you can just send them a note of congratulations. Just real heartfelt stuff, the easy stuff. Just little things. I think sometimes when people hit a bump in the road or they're struggling, sometimes a phone call at that point is really meaningful to them. And hanging in there with them and offering help to them, those things all kind of add up. They're little things that we do one day at a time. And as you go along in your career, as all of you go along in your careers, your network's going to expand. But it's the little things that you do day in and day out that really add up and allow you to expand your network. But I really, saying thanks and letting people know that you appreciate what they did is a great way to build a relationship.
Anybody else for Scott? All right. Thanks, Scott. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Very nice. Great stuff. Jim Smith, sweating the small stuff, buddy.
Yeah. I'm going to do my presentation like I play golf, quickly and efficiently.
Did you say efficiently?
Well,
You play golf efficiently?
I mean, if I shoot 84, I do it pretty efficiently.
All right. Go get it.
Keith, Cameron, thanks for inviting me onto this. I certainly don't belong on a panel with these two guys. Jeff was talking about all the the accolades and what have you, and he forgot to mention that there's 99 years worth of maturity in this group, but 98 of them are those two, and one's me. For those of you that don't get to know these guys real well, I will share with you a way to expand your network and be purple at the same time before I get into mine. I can guarantee you that if any of you picked up the phone or sent an email to Jeff or Scott or any of the top professionals in the country and said, listen, I know you're one of the best golf pros in America. Is there any chance I could spend 20 or 25 minutes with you just picking your brain? First of all, we're all flattered when people do that. Like, the fact that people might want to hear what we have to say is flattering. And I guarantee you that they've never said no to something like that. And people that reach out and do that kind of thing make themselves purple by simply making the act of reaching out. And then Scott or Jeff or I or whoever it is that you might end up talking to will remember who you are. I've hired people because they've done that with me. In fact, I literally just hired a guy from Florida because he kept sending me emails over a year and a half saying, I want to come work at cricket, asking me questions about his career. And, Scott said a couple things that I'm going to touch on. But, one of the things I do want to make sure I clarify is everything I tell you is just my opinion. It doesn't make it right. It certainly isn't right in all situations. I think what you're doing by sitting through this and listening to different perspectives is part of what expanding your network and being purple is. It is absorbing information and choosing, what pieces of that information you think might be relevant to your situation. I have our staff read a service book every winter, and I know they're not going to read the book and then start acting as if, or behaving, according to the book. But if they get one idea from that book, and we do that over 5 or 10 years, and they get 5 or 10 ideas, they're 5 or 10 ways better than they were before. So you sitting through this and listening to us is hopefully going to give you some ideas to be better. I will also tell you, I think that what we do is not rocket science, which is why I think sweating the small stuff, which is what I wanted to talk about. This is not, being a great golf professional is not bells and whistles. It is, it's not your ability to interview that gets you the next job. It's not how good your resume that will get you your next job. It's not how good looking you are, or how tall you are. What will get you your next job is what you do every day. and what your contribution is to the operation that you work in. People will notice if you're doing the right. And, as I thought about like, what does that mean? I mean, there's a couple of the guys that work with me at Cricket are on the call, and one who used to work with me and they've heard me say this kind of stuff before. But, defining what a little thing is depends on, your definition of what a little thing is. I can't tell you what it is or what it isn't, but I can share with you some ideas. And Scott literally hit my first one on the head just a second ago, which is, I would ask all of you tonight or tomorrow, go into your sent emails and search your emails, type in the word thank, type in THANK, okay? If you don't have an email or 2 or 3 that shows up every day, you're not doing something that's incredibly important. You should be thanking somebody for something every day because we have things to be thankful for. And it's not that hard to send a quick email, to Scott's point. Writing a letter's better. Picking up the phone's great. But send thank yous and be genuine in how you thank people. It's an overlooked skill. For those of you, you may or may not know this, but I spend about $10,000 a year on cupcakes. I send cupcakes like they're going out of style, and it costs me $60 a pop. Jeff's gotten them at the office. Kitty's seen them. Scott's seen them at Marion. And what that does is it makes me purple because I'm saying thank you. And the sad part about that is that so few people do say thank you that when you do it, it appears extraordinary. But it's a little thing. That's what sweating the small stuff is. It's making sure that you say thank you as much as you possibly can. Most people would be surprised by this. I have sent an email to every customer of mine that has spent over $500 for 17 years. And literally, I've had a lot of customers spend more than $500. But all it is it's a template email. It's not that complicated, but it takes me 30 seconds to send 4 or 5 of them. People remember that kind of thing. So sweating the small stuff means saying thank you more than you think you should. Sweating the small stuff to me means treating all service opportunities the same. People walk in the golf shop. I'm looking to buy a set of PXGs. I'm going to spend $3,000. That person shouldn't get any less service than somebody that says, I need a pair of socks. Which are the right pair of socks for me? Because people are going to judge you on that interaction and how you deal with it. And they're going to notice if the impression that you give to the person that makes the sock request as if it kind of doesn't matter, they'll notice that stuff. They'll also notice if you treat them the same way when they do buy a pair of socks. And of course, I'm exaggerating one extreme or the other, but every interaction is an opportunity. And when you have an opportunity, if you're aware of the little things, when you have an opportunity in an interaction, there's three outcomes. They're going to think positively of you. They're going to leave without any impression of you, or they're going to leave with a negative impression. No impression or negative impression are bad. It's one of the things that fascinates me in the professional sports world, where guys won't sign an autograph or they act like a jackass to a fan. That fan is going to tell 10 fans about the interaction. Those 10, when the name comes up, are going to tell another 100. And there's going to end up being 1,000 people that are going to say that guy's a jackass, even though none of them have ever met him. It's the same thing with the interactions that we have with our members. Scott brought up the idea of, the interaction that he had with the cricket club member. Do you mind telling me who that was, Scott?
Yeah. His name is Sheridan. Last name is Sheridan.
Okay.
He was involved in governance there.
Yep.
Back at that time. I forget his first name.
But that's a great example where Scott did something positive for somebody because he treated that opportunity and he sweated the small stuff. And that guy told other people, and there's 100 people now who don't know Scott. They've never met the guy.
Right.
But they're telling other people what a great guy he is. That's the way the world works. And if you don't worry about the little things, you won't get the benefit of those kinds of interactions. Another thing is responsiveness. How many people here can't stand when you make a phone call or send an email and nobody replies to you? I mean, we're in a world that people expect, instant responses. And I think that sweating the small stuff means being hyper responsive. It doesn't mean that you have to have an answer to somebody, but it does mean not letting emails go too long. It does mean not returning phone calls. And the more responsive you are, responsiveness stimulates respect, in my opinion. So that is sweating the small stuff. Don't ever think that somebody that sends you an email isn't judging you if you don't deal with that email. How many of us have gotten emails from sales reps looking to push something on us, right? We're all busy. It's real easy just to ignore it. Don't. Send them an email. Hey, appreciate your email. There's no chance of me buying anything, but I know you got a tough job. Next. They're going to remember that in a positive way. That's being responsive. Speaking of emails, I think that that's another area that where sweating the small stuff matters. We get so much communication these days that it's really easy, you know, and I'm a classic case. So I probably get 300 or 400 emails a day. And it would be really easy for me to look at an email and figure out how can I efficiently get through this by potentially responding with 2 or 3 words. Hey, Jim, can you do you have somebody available to fit me? No, call Bob. And I hit send, right? Like they're gonna get that response because I wasn't sweating the small stuff, meaning I wasn't thinking about a proper response, and that's going to leave a negative impression. The other side of the coin is, hey, I don't do the fittings anymore, but Nate is copied, and he'll take great care of you. That's a totally different, and it takes a little more time to write that, but it leaves the impression. That's sweating the small stuff. Accuracy. Are you accurate? Are you accurate with your prep for tournaments? Are you accurate with things that you have to write? Are things that you write going into a website? Are you accurate with tournament results? Sweating the small stuff means doing it and then taking a step back and then taking a look at it to make sure it's accurate. We all make mistakes, and that's not something that can ever be avoided. But as much as you can avoid it by taking the time to do things right, you should do that. Because if you get in the habit of not trying to do things right over time and over a long period of time, that will become who you are. That will become what you're known for, which is somebody who doesn't sweat the details and makes mistakes. This is an easy one that I was thinking about. And it ties into, do you want a reputation as a yes person or a no person? Obviously, the answer is I want a reputation as a yes person, right? We all do. One of the ways to get a reputation as a yes person is to deliver no's with options. So as an example, everybody's familiar with the Grove, Michael Jordan's course in Jupiter, 400 grand to join. You basically don't step foot on the property unless you know Michael, right? I had a member send me an email on Thursday. Hey, me and 7 buddies are down here. Can you get us out on the Grove on Saturday morning? Now, we all know the instant reaction is this dude a complete idiot or what, right? Like, don't you want to say that to the guy? Of course you do, right? But you can't. Well, you can. You know, the bluntness of me maybe would have done that, but I didn't. My reply was, hey, Matt, unfortunately, the Grove doesn't allow any unaccompanied play. It's really busy down in Florida right now, and weekend morning play is very difficult to get. Here's a list of public golf courses that you should reach out to. And I went on to Golf Link, and I pulled up 3 public golf courses, Abaco, I forget what the other 2 were. And essentially I said no, but I gave him options, and the options were public golf. He probably didn't like that, but that's a lot better than just saying, dude, you're an idiot. Leave me alone. Right? Don't answer anything with a simple no. The answer should always be no, but. Or don't ever answer with I don't know. The answer should be I don't know, but hang in there and I'll get an answer for you. Okay? Again, these are little things that take time, but they matter. Another little thing I think, and this has more to do with our coworkers than it does with members, but this can hold true, for all your interactions. And a couple of the guys that work with me at Cricket are on the call, and they can corroborate this. I don't think I've ever said to anybody on the staff, "Get this done," and walked away, ever. That's not how you communicate with people. You communicate by saying, "Can you do me a favor and take care of this?" Do you have time to take care of this? Hey, here's a list of things I'd like you to handle when don't tell people to do things. It's always better to use language where you're asking questions. You can elicit responses with questions. You can get people to go by asking you can get people to go where you want them to go by asking the right questions. When you become a teller, when you get a reputation for just saying, do this or do that, you get a reputation for being a jackass. So it's one of those things where you need to learn to use language. And again, that's sweating the small stuff. That's thinking about what comes out of your mouth. To me, that is a little thing. Another thing I think, and this certainly has to do with the people that we work with, but others rely on you. Okay, sweating the small stuff to me means when somebody asks something from me, as much as I can, I'm going to make it a priority to get the information back to the person that asked me as quickly as possible, because chances are what they asked me for, they can't do what they need to do until they get the answer from me. Think about that. How many times have you asked a coworker, maybe you've got a project to do or you need something, whatever it is, and you've asked somebody and they're like, yeah, I'll take care of it. And then 3 days later, you got to follow up because they didn't bother. That pisses me off. And I just think it's insensitive. And I think that the more you can make other people's requests of you a priority and get them done while still getting your own work done, the better you'll be perceived by the people that you work with. This is a simple one, but do something extra. How many of us I've seen Scott do this at Marion a bunch. And Scott has to do it a lot because he gets a lot of guests. But the way Marion is set up, and actually Aronimic's set up very similarly. I know Jeff does the same thing, but you'll have guests that sometimes will show up in the golf shop and maybe the member's not there. And they'll say, where's the locker room? It's over there. Bye. Right? And you put your head down and you keep doing what you're doing. You can't do that. Here, let me show you where it is. It's sweating the small stuff is walking the person to the locker room, introducing them to the locker room attendant. All of these things are little things that define who you are every day. And I think one of the things that I want to be really careful with is there is a book out there that you've probably heard about it. It says, don't sweat the small stuff, right? It postulates that, everybody's too busy to really worry about little things. Jeff, I haven't cursed yet, but I think I'm going to right now. Total bullshit. Sweat it.
Hour and 24 minutes, by the way. That's pretty good.
That is. That's the best I've ever done on a seminar. But here's what I would say to you is that you have to be organized, and you have to create systems to be able to give yourself the time to address and sweat the little things. Like if you walk into work every day without a game plan, you're going to get overwhelmed with requests and you're going to feel like, oh my God, I can't do everything, right? But if you walk into work with a game plan, and all of you should have game plans, you should be thinking about what I'm going to be doing at work, not waiting for people like Jeff or Scott or I to tell you what to do. We want you to come in prepared, right? And one of the things I tell my staff all the time is my main job, and I think Scott and Jeff's job, is to look into the future and try to anticipate things and then have us deal with it before it becomes an issue. That is all part of being organized. That's all part of having systems to be able to run your operation in a way that everybody kind of does it the same way, and it frees you up to deal with little stuff. If you don't have systems in place, personally or professionally, you're going to have a hard time sweating the little things. And then because you're not sweating the little things, you're going to come off as disorganized or a no person. So it's all a gigantic circle, in my opinion. Being organized, having systems gives you the time to be able to worry about the little things. And then when you worry about the little things, people notice it. And one of the things I bet you, if you think back to some of the service interactions that you've had at places, more often than not, it's a really little thing that they did that causes you to remember them. I was at a car dealership with my wife the other day, and I can't stand car dealerships, and I feel like I hate going in there. It's like getting my teeth pulled. And the sales rep who we dealt with never once brought up anything other than he was asking questions instead of telling us things. But when it was all said and done, he went away, he came back, and he said, listen, based on what you've told me, the car's not a fit for you. So here's my card, and if you ever need something in the future, give me a call. Everything that he did up to that point, I was kind of like, oh, he's a car salesman. When he did that little thing where he said, it's not right for you, you know who I'm going to call next time we're thinking about maybe doing something, or I need to refer somebody to a car dealer. This guy's getting my referral. So I tried to keep that. That was pretty short for me. But at the end of the day, I think that like what you do and your reputation, the building of your network, the ability to be a purple cow is all contingent on doing little things right over and over and over and over again. And they become habits. And when they become habits, that's when you become a great golf professional. That's all I got.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I think too, one of the things that I talk to my folks about and as many folks as I can is when you establish those relationships with folks, the little things go away. Like those little bumps in the road, they go away because you have established that relationship with those people, and if something does happen to fall through the cracks, it doesn't become a big deal, right? Little things don't become big deals when you have, that kind of reputation with people and that relationship.
Jeff, I would tell you that when you have a reputation as a yes person, when you have to deliver a no, people respect it.
Right.
Because they know that you'd be trying to say yes if you're only giving them a no because you absolutely positively have to.
Right.
When you develop a no person, start looking for another job.
Yeah.
Because it's going to come back and get you at some point.
Right. Right. Leela, you had your hand up?
I was just going to ask what car dealership.
It was a Hyundai dealer. The shop had a bad year.
Hyundai, okay.
Yeah, nice try.
It was, honestly, it was a Hyundai dealer. It was.
It was Aston Martin, Leela. Don't even
Sure
listen
was.
to him.
It was a Porsche.
Brian, what do you got, bud?
First off, I want to thank Keith for allowing me to be a part of this. I'm actually not a Philly section member. I'm a Middle Atlantic section assistant, and I was happy to see this on Instagram, and I felt like I needed to be a part of it. So, but Mr. Smith, what was the book that you talked about? Jim, what was the book that you talked about for that you make your assistants read?
It's actually, it varies. Like it's a new book every year.
Okay.
Actually, Purple Cow's a book that I'm a huge. The best service book out there, in my opinion, if you were going to read one book to improve, there's a book out there called Positively Outrageous Service. It's actually, we use the term POS, and it doesn't mean piece of you know what, but we call it POSing people. And POS is the definition of positively outrageous service in the book is doing the little things right all the time and constantly trying to exceed expectations. Not complicated.
Right.
Hug your customer would be mine with the same kind of concept. Of doing those little things that just differentiate yourself to, exceeding expectation.
Yeah, just to add to that, we believe that as soon as somebody turns into the driveway at Marion, they're on our time. We've got to be really paying close attention. So what we want is upon arrival, once they arrive, how many touches, saying hello, using their names as much as possible, but they're ours until they get back in their car and leave the club. And what we want them when they turn left or right out of our club entrance is to say, I can't wait to do that again. That's what we're striving for. We want to make sure that we do the little things to make sure that they feel like they're being treated the way we feel they should be treated.
And I can tell everybody this, Scott, and Jeff and I obviously are really nice clubs, but Scott's club, Charlie Rowdenbush, they're at a different level. And they have people, when people walk into Marion, literally it could be a dream fulfilled of their entire life. Some member might be bringing somebody who for 30 years, the only thing that their bucket list thing was to play Marion, which means the expectations are really high for everybody that walks on property at places like Marion and Pine Valley, which makes what these guys do so extraordinary because they're able to meet and exceed those expectations, and they're already ridiculously high to begin with. In fact, I would suggest to you that, professionals like Scott and Charlie Rowdenbush at these great clubs, they're often underrated. People have no idea how hard their jobs are. because of the expectations that come with being at those places.
I think too, I think one of the things that I really, the longer I'm in the industry, and Jim, and Jeff, I admire what you guys do. And there are so many, solid people in our industry, but I have this term that I say, we work for the benefit of the doubt. And Jeff Surratt, you hit on it a second ago. And things are not always going to go perfectly. They're not always going to go to plan as much as you want them to. But that's where the little things each and every day that we all do collectively as a team really add up. And then when something gets a little off center, I believe that we get the benefit of the doubt. And I've had times where I think this way. I think about if I was to take a normal day, we'll call it a Saturday in the middle of July, and if I have 12 people that are on site working, greeting and meeting and helping our golfers arrive at the club and get them started. If all 12 of my employees, were to come in at 11 o'clock and say, I want you to write down the names of everybody that you talked to this morning. Right? So if Keith Clausen or Grant Gardner or Nathan Arts or Brandon, they come in and they write a list that has 62 people on it, and we take that 62 and we multiply it times, let's say, 10 people. How many touches is that? And how positive is that? Versus not making that touch and not saying hello, not shaking somebody's hand or using their name. It's amazing how good it can be. And we all work at the really, really nice places, and people will give you the benefit of the doubt. They want you to do well. And if they truly know that you are interested in them, it's not all about you, it's about them, they're going to help you. That's been my experience.
So I pulled out a file while Jimmy was talking. He was talking about thank yous, and if you don't think thank you notes, making a thank you gifts or whatever, a handwritten thank you note. I pulled out a file. So I've got a file on my desk, and it's got this is about half the file. I've kept thank you notes. I don't know what I'm ever going to do with them, but a lot of them meant enough to me. I'm like, I put it in a file. I'm like, and if you ever have a bad day and you feel like the world's against you, you can pull it out and read a couple of thank you notes and feel appreciated. But I literally have a file. So the thank you notes make a huge, especially a handwritten thank you note. If you don't have your own stationery, it's not expensive to do it anymore. Get your own stationery and write thank you notes. Emails are easy. I get it. Text is really easy. We don't have an excuse anymore for not getting timely thank you notes, but things that really matter, writing a handwritten thank you note makes a lasting impression. I can promise you.
All right. Any more questions for Jim? Keith?
So Jim and Scott and Jeff, you guys have been super generous with your time. And before we let you guys jump off and we go to Jonathan, Jim, you said something which I thought was really interesting, and it's pretty basic, but if you could expand on it a little bit for the group. You said, obviously a negative impression is a bad thing, but you also said no impression is a bad thing. And that resonated with me a little bit. Could you expand just shortly on that?
Well, it goes back to the purple cow analogy. I mean, I'm saying this sort of, you're all cows, and like, what makes you stand out? What are you doing to provide an impression that is positive, that makes you purple? Because you're all fighting for the same jobs. There's just not that many great jobs out there. And there's a lot of really good looking, smart golf professionals that want those jobs. And, if you don't understand that you're going to get that job because of what you do every day and how you approach every interaction, and if you don't think about making sure that you have somebody leave interactions with you thinking, wow, that's a good guy or a good lady. It doesn't have to be, oh my God, that's the most incredible person I've ever been around. It just has to be, wow, what a nice person, or what a smart person, or what a friendly person, whatever it is. Those are all positive things. And it's so easy in our business, Keith. I think that we get overwhelmed at times, and we have, to Scott's point, all these different touch points, right? And it can be really easy to let our guard down, and, maybe we're having a bad day and we're short with somebody, or we're not smiling, or we don't meet and greet somebody that comes in, whatever it is. You can't let it happen. That's the difference between being great and being purple and being average. And the average guys are going to have average jobs, and the great guys are going to have great jobs. But getting to great it's not like, pixie dust. It is work, hard work, effort, paying attention, and understand. Mindset. Yep. It's a great way to say it. When I was, I don't know how old people are on this. When I was 27 years old, I had 3 kids and I was on welfare. I had to use welfare to buy baby formula for my kids. But, and where I am today, in a lot of ways, is dumb luck. I happen to be in the right place at the right time several times. But I also know I've done the things that Scott talked about with networking. So my point is that you have to look at, as you go through every day, understand, getting judged, good or bad, you're getting judged, and you better be smart about what you're doing. And you better make sure that you're not giving people a reason to say that dude's an idiot. It could be what you post on Facebook. If you posted on Facebook a picture of you with a can of beer on Facebook like this, and you applied for a job for me, you wouldn't get it because of that one picture. And it's not that you can't go drinking. It's that you put it out there and you said, this is important to me to tell the world that I'm a drinker. It's just a mindset. Jeff used the great word.
I think, can I kind of piggyback on what Jimmy just said there too, is all your interactions, you don't know what interaction is going to be a point that, or an interaction that helps push you over the edge for that next opportunity. And I use this story all the time because it's my own story. I'm sitting at my work desk. I'm sitting at this desk because of the superintendent of at a club that I worked at in Rochester. Not because of the guy that I consider my mentor, and we all want to do great jobs for the people that we work for, hopefully, our head professionals, directors of golf. But I'm here just because of the superintendent. I applied for an assistant pro job at Marion before Scott was there. So that was in like 1942 before Scott got there. When Jim Muthing was there, and I called him every day because he said he was interested. He was waiting to see if one of his assistants, Andrew Campbell, was going to get a head pro job. And he didn't. Andrew didn't get that job. And Jim forwarded my resume to Pine Valley. He said, Jeff, he goes, I don't have an opening, but I forwarded your resume to Charlie. He's looking for somebody. And, light went off for me. The superintendent in Monroe, where I was working, had been the superintendent at Pine Valley. He left on his own choice. He was a young single guy, and he didn't want to live in Clementon, and he moved back to Rochester to work at Monroe. And I asked Patrick, I said, do you know Charlie Rodenbush? I said, are you still friends with him? He goes, yeah, absolutely. And literally, I got that when I walked in, for my interview, I was wearing coat and tie, and said, Charlie said, you can take your coat and tie off. It makes me nervous. You got the job on Patrick's call. Literally, it was the superintendent that, and so that job left to Applebrook. Applebrook led to here. I'm here, thankfully to Jim Muthing, and because of a superintendent. And I never thought just being cordial as superintendent. I like the guy too, but that's what opened my doors. And so you never know what it's going to be. You really don't. Be it a member, a coworker, whatever it is, another golf professional.
There's a funny thread on the Jim Muthing. Jim Muthing is now a member of Marion Golf Club.
I heard that.
But the way I got to Marion was also because of Jim Muthing. We played high school golf against each other, and we were playing in the state championships, and he was playing with another player on my team, and the two of them weren't getting along too well, and I kind of got in the middle, and believe it or not, they were kind of ready to go at each other, but it was my approach, and that's where, I tried to do the right thing to quiet things down. And from there, I built a relationship with Jim that, is still going today. Talk to him all the time. But when he decided to get out of the golf industry, it's the things that I did when I was 17 years old, 18 years old, 19 years old that swung back around. And that friendship that started way back when we were in high school playing against each other, something happened there, the little thing that I did that he never forgot. And when he decided to get out and they asked him to name his replacement, that's how I got where I got.
One name.
One name.
Yeah.
But I had no idea that was going to happen. No idea. But I didn't, you just try to go through life and be grateful, respectful, try to be helpful to others. And, good things can happen. But it's I think what Jim kept driving home was it's each and every day. You go to work with a plan. You try to do the right things. You try to help your teammates. We all love having people that we really don't have to, like Jim said, tell what to do. We say, hey, we need to get this done. How do you want to go about doing it? But it's easy. We're not scientists and doctors and lawyers and stuff like that. Just have to have good common sense and treat people well and be a self-starter. Bones, when he spoke at one of our events, they asked him, well, what makes a good tour player? Why does somebody make it and why does somebody not make it? And he said, well, there are blamers and non-blamers. He said the non-blamers have a much better chance of making it on the tour than the blamers. So take responsibility for your own actions each and every day and bring it.
So guys, with the wisdom that's on this call, we could literally go all night, and we've taken up enough of your time, and we appreciate you guys giving your time to this group. So I think it's time we probably transition to Jonathan and Leela's section. And, from myself, the PAO, everyone who's on this call, thank you guys so much for sharing that and spending your time tonight. We'll let you guys get out of here and we will transition to the next part.
Thanks,
Thank
Steve.
you.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. Thanks, Jeff. That was obviously tremendous. And good evening, everyone. It's always a privilege and pleasure to be with you. That is certainly an amazing act to follow. Just that, thinking back to my time as assistant professional, that is so invaluable advice for us to take. And, just thinking, wow, just can't wait to get out there and prove yourselves and establish yourself as a brand. And I'll speak about that in a little bit. But first, I certainly just wanted to introduce Leela Mackey. I think a lot of you on this call really have gotten to know Leela over the years with her dedication and service to the Philadelphia PGA section, but also now we welcome her for the PGA of America side of things in the career services team. Leela has joined us as a career consultant and recruiting specialist. So Leela can obviously throw the ball to you and just, besides the introduction, take it away.
Thanks, Jonathan. And thanks for letting me be here, everybody. I do know a lot of you, but certainly not all of you. And previously, I was working for Jeff Surrett for the Philly section for about 10 years, and it was a great job. And first and foremost, Jeff, I want to thank you for everything you've done for me in my career. This call made me thank all those people that when I was starting out in 22 in the city of Philadelphia that I'd never been to before. I really appreciate everything. And recently transitioned to the career services role. Before that, I was the foundation director of PGA Reach Philadelphia under Jeff. So I'm going to be really quick. Just want to touch on a couple of things. First off, I was going to do kind of a pared down version of what we normally do in our district roundtables that Jeff and the section run. So I'm not going to touch on all that, obviously, and I'm just going to make a couple of quick points. But if you have not attended a section roundtable before, you should. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback. It's a really good chance to connect, network, learn some ideas. Please look up the schedule and go to one this year if you have not gone to one. So, and also if you want to talk more about attracting, retaining talent, recruiting, So we were charged with kind of filling that funnel for PGA of America for recruiting and making sure we have professionals for the future, and how can we get more diverse talent and everything. So there's a team of 4 of us, and we cover the whole country. Jonathan's I work really closely with him on some career services stuff. So I'm here to help you in your career any way you can, and also any recruiting things that you have. So I just want to make really one point, which is Jim Smith talked about being a purple cow. And I actually remember when I first started in the section, didn't know what I was doing. I was hired as a player development person, and I reached out to Jim Smith, Scott and I, and Jeff Kitty to sit down and meet with them to find out what they did best. And they were so open to meeting with me, and like, it was really helpful. And he told me about the purple cow thing that first time that I met with him. And so be a purple cow of recruiting. So how can you at your club be the purple cow of recruiting, especially right now? Every employer asks, what do you do? How do you cultivate talent? How do you attract and retain employees? That's a really big issue right now, but also it should be a really valuable asset to have forever. And so thinking about how you can be a purple cow, there's a couple of things I would say are the most important, which is, other than looking at kind of why people are leaving the workforce. So definitely knowing the industry, finding out why people are leaving. If you don't know why people are leaving your facility, that's a problem. You should know why people are leaving your facility, and also kind of what are the trends and what motivates people. This generation is very different. A lot of you are kind of younger on this call, so work-life balance is big. What you value in your personal life, family, those types of things that they talked about is big. But getting creative with some of the other things like mentoring, leadership, making sure you are helping somebody get to where they want to go in their career. That's why somebody takes a job, is what can they get out of their career. So actually investing in those times and opportunities. Keith, I can send you these slides and you can share them with everybody. And if anybody has any questions, they can reach out to me, because I know we're short on time. But if anybody has any questions, definitely attend a district roundtable. I'll turn it back over to Jonathan to talk about the PI.
Yeah. Leela, thank you. Really appreciate it. I want to share with everyone a couple slides here as we get into it. And I know that everyone here has filled out the predictive index. You might have filled this out before if you're going through an executive search, but this is something that's going to be more prevalent when we go through searches, especially for head professional or key management positions. That would be the next step in your career. So everyone should have received their results. If you didn't receive your results, just shoot me an email afterwards, and I'll certainly share it with you. But funny enough, a lot of things we talked about today have to do with you. And believe it or not, you are a brand. And everything you do, every single day, you have a choice. And that choice ultimately leads to you bettering your brand or not bettering your brand. And you have to be aware of that. And it's critical. When I was an assistant, I had a member come up to me and speak into my ear, and he pointed out a very successful member. The guy was 35 years old. You knew he was successful in his financial world. And he said, that person is the Michael Jordan of what he does. And that has stuck with me, 15 years later, honestly. I think about that every single day, and it drives me personally to be the best version I can be, hopefully to better the careers of PGA professionals, what I'm passionate about. So I just challenge you, in your careers, find out, what is your passion and how can you be the Michael Jordan of it? And you're going to be incredibly successful. One of the companies that is not on here is Tesla. And I think Tesla is an amazing company because they spend $0 on their marketing. So you talk about a purple cow, they are the ultimate purple cow. It's one of the largest corporations in the history of the world with $0 marketing dollars. So, and if you listen to Elon Musk talk, he is relentless in perfecting their product. So if you are a product and you're relentless at it, and your skills and your craft and bettering yourselves, then ultimately, your people will become a promoter of you. And that's what ultimately becomes successful in networking and tying everything together. So to start, I'm going to go through what is becoming a commonplace in our industry, and that is Spark hires. If you haven't gone through it already, there is a likelihood that you will go through it. A Spark hire is a one-way recording where you are asked a question on your screen, and you have about 2 minutes to answer that question, and that gets sent off into the digital universe in the hands of an employer. They will review it at their own time, and they certainly will make a hiring decision based on your Spark hire. I attribute Spark hires like playing in the rain. Some people love it, some people don't. If you love playing in the rain, you love when it rains, right? So if you are good and can practice this, you're going to receive a Spark hire and say, yes, this is going to set me apart. I'm going to get comfortable with this. This is something you can practice. So by all means, at first glimpse, it's tough. I would really suggest reaching out to Leela and myself in advance of having one. If it's your first time, we can walk you through some tips or tricks, but I wouldn't be hesitant about it. You can be a master at the Spark hire, and it ultimately gets you further along in the interview process. Some key things are little things, right? Little things are looking into your camera lens. Be aware of what's behind you. Do you have good lighting? Do you have good audio? You should always be able, regardless if it's a Spark hire or an in-person interview, you know you're going to be asked the question, tell me about yourself. So you can prepare a 2-minute response of tell me about yourself. Probably why you're interested in the opportunity, and there's probably something in there about closing comments and or questions. A Spark hire is 5 questions, right? So you have 3 of the 5 you could certainly rehearse ahead of time and master. So again, something that is becoming commonplace in our industry when we're interviewing, not only for our head professional positions, but also assistant professional positions. We're just in the digital world, but something that you can prepare and master. Again, some things, we see these all the time. Camera up the nose, light behind the head, dark screen. You know, we haven't seen the bathroom yet, but certainly have seen something like that. I'm going to send you these slides. This is Sarah Dixon. For those that know Sarah, she did a wonderful job in her Spark hire, and something that we use as a training tool for those that are anticipating getting one in the near future for an opportunity. So along with Leela's slides, I will share these with you so you can review those at your own time. I'm going to skip the interviewing part and just kind of head right into the predictive index. So I anticipate a lot of you on the call. This is your first time really taking a predictive index. I know Jeff and the team at Agronomic, they have gone through this. They use this for their professional development. But the first thing I want to talk about as far as a predictive index, we use them in executive search, but we always tell the committee, and I want you to know, it is not a tool that the committee uses to make a hiring decision. There is no way you can ace it. There's no way you can fail it. The predictive index is designed to just figure out, you know, what kind of person the candidate is. What are the behavioral traits, and does it match with the facility? And if it doesn't match, what are the resources we need to give this person so they can succeed at the position? So again, you can't pass fail it. It's funny, this predictive index has been around for quite some time, and we've had people that took it 20 years ago that take it 20 years later, and they're exactly the same, because it really identifies who you are as a person, how and how the world sees you. So a little bit about the predictive index. There's 17 reference profiles. On the top of your report, that's that first paragraph that just tells you a little bit about your profile. And they're segmented into 4 different categories. There's the analytical side, there's the social side, those that are like stabilizers in the group, and those that are just drivers. Those are the captains of the ship. They're all unique in their own right, and again, there's no right or wrong, and all these can be leaders or the CEOs of any company or any facility or head professional at a club. This does not matter. So what are some of the assessments that we do? In the past, what we've done was just ask a committee, you know, what is important to you in your next head professional? And then we would get a whole array of things. And we still ask, those are important, but we ask the committee to fill out a job assessment. And this is kind of streamlines the approach. So when we get down to the finalists, they don't kind of move off the target or swayed one way or another. Then there's behavioral assessment, which you took, and I believe the cognitive assessment that you took as well. And the cognitive assessment is really something we don't really utilize. It just is a way for a predictive index to manage how quickly you can process information, how quickly you can solve problems. Okay, so here's what you would see in your form. The top part is who you are. This is exactly who you are as a person. The middle part is how you believe yourself to be, and also you have environmental factors that can change, right? So it may be different when you look at yours. And the third one is, the combination of the both, and that's how the outside world views you as a person. Now, on your PI, you have 4 different letters, and the first one is our letter A, and that's on the very top. And so that swings all the way to the left, and that's who you are as a leadership. It's either you're a collaborative leader, or if you swing all the way to the right, you are really independent in your leadership style. Get out of my way, I'm going to do this. And whereas if you were all the way on the left side of the A, you're going to say, hey team, let's dive in this together. Let's kind of be problem solvers, and we're going to work through this step by step. Okay. The next part would be your B, and that's who you are and how you're extroverted or introverted. So if you're all the way on the right, you thrive off of connections, interacting with people. After a day, maybe at the PGA Merchandise Show, you get back to your hotel room and you're ready to go. You can go 10 more hours of socializing with people. Or if you're on the left side of that, you're probably a little bit introverted, and it's exhausting for you to have those relationships and network, and that's okay. You should just be aware of that, and that's why that may feel like it's a little bit uncomfortable for you to do so. Our C is our patience. What type of environment we will thrive in. A C all the way on the right is you like it steady, and a C all the way on the left means that you're kind of a little bit impatient. You want things to hurry up, and more of a driving focus. And D, at the last but not least, is our rule breakers. So I'm going to show someone's PI in a second. If your D is all the way on the left, you kind of don't get distracted so much by the rules. You kind of want to just focus on the results, and the formality, the process just really isn't there. And if your D is all the way on the right, yes, you're going to be precise, and you are totally along the lines of following rules. These are great tournament directors. Everything has to be, X, Y, Z, cross the T's, dot the I's. These are all the way on the right. Okay. And then lastly, we have what would be for our management team, and I'm sure Jeff uses this with his team as well, is how we can develop others, and for professional development, how people like to be communicated with, what are their behaviors, what are their drives, and certainly what are their needs. This is going to be kind of a surprise. If I can get my mouse here, I'm going to show a different screen and show this one. So here we have, this is Leela, right? And, Leela was approached to be part of our team. And so if I look at Leela's, right, Leela is an innovative, outside the box thinker who is undaunted by failure. And when we hire, a career consultant and a recruiting specialist, now Leela is asked to go in the marketplace and energize people to have a career in the game of golf, become part of the PGA of America, become a golf professional, or become a golf operations. And this is why Leela is a perfect fit for our team. We give her flexibility to go out, so her A is right of center. She can be independent. I'm certainly not a leader that is going to say, hey, you have to do this, this, this. I'm autonomous and say, hey, you know what, this is what is expected, and you're going to go figure it out. And if you look at Leela's B, it can't be further right on the chart, because that's really what's needed for the job. You have to be willing to get out there and be sociable, be interactive with others. And for those that know Leela, I think the B could be even further right. If it was all the way on the left, this could be probably a difficult job for Leela, being that, I think that, 5,000 interactions so far with those interested in a career in the game. So, that's why it's really important to have someone all the way on the right. And then C, obviously, is our patience, and D, right, flexible, right? Leela couldn't be more left with rules. So as someone that is working with Leela, I have to know that, hey, I have to give, like I said, Leela the autonomy and trust Leela to make decisions and be flexible and say, hey, here's really what we're focused on. And, you're going to do great, and provide some guidelines, but not so many, if that's what's needed. And then last but not least, I'm going to share one last thing. So this is a professional development chart. This would be for you. I can send you this if you want to send me a quick note afterwards on just really what is your emotional intelligence. And it's not to change who you are, but just to be aware of what your tendencies are if you find yourself in a difficult situation or you'd like to grow, right? So if we look at dominance, right, Leela was right of center. If we go down and see the self-coaching tips, instead of being a little bit independent, if you want to gain consensus, right, you would actively seek input from multiple sources and just kind of remember that. Extroversion is a wonderful tool, especially for the position at hand. But on the opposite side, you kind of just want to be aware of allowing others the opportunity to contribute and influence, and so on and so forth. And then we go through everything else here. But again, we find this as a wonderful tool, one that when we speak with committees is helpful for them to just really better understand the candidates that are in front of them. Our job when we conduct the executive searches is to provide as much knowledge and information in front of the committee's laps so they can make an insightful decision on who their next head golf professional is. And they're looking at things like the Spark Hire, which kind of streamlines the process, but the predictive index is also a way for them to kind of see behind the veil a little bit, because when we meet with them, I always have the saying that you're hiring a golf professional, you are not hiring a professional interviewer. Although it's really important, and that's certainly part of the process, we're hiring a golf professional. They have to know, and more often than not, the people that get hired are the ones that just have that fit. In the past, we couldn't describe it, but predictive index kind of helps the committee kind of better understand what the fit is. So I'm going to wrap it up right there. Just if anyone has any questions, any comments about that, anything in addition to that, the process, by all means. I know we're on the top of the second hour here, so if you have any questions, let me know. Vicky.
Yeah, so Jonathan, that was helpful to, help us understand what that is and how to read it. And, for a lot of these people, if it was your first time doing this, you're probably going to see it again, and I think you would agree. But when doing this, Jonathan, would you recommend that you just answer these questions, 100% truthfully and honestly, or would you try to tailor it to a particular opportunity? Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a great question and probably the most common one. You really can't trick it. It's who you are. You need to be authentic. There's no right or wrong when you take the behavioral test. There really isn't. So you have to be your true self, and ultimately you'll get the best result. Because if you come into a situation and you say, hey, this looks like a really formal job and it's really precise, so that A is all the way on the right, you need to be independent, and you have to be really extroverted, so maybe the B is all the way on the right too, and that's just not you, you're probably going to feel really burnt out after a year or two, and it's just not the right fit. So there's no gain in trying to rig the system. Hey, Ryan.
Yeah, I have a question for Jeff and for you, Jonathan. Jeff, since we use it at Aronimink, have you seen a time where someone submits a PI assessment to you or Jonathan, and it doesn't really match once they come in to the team? How then do you kind of tailor your coaching to get them up to speed, or get them on track or something like that? Does that make sense?
So you're saying it doesn't match to what maybe the position calls for?
Yeah, that too. Or maybe they did cheat it, or if they can't cheat it, it gets a different characteristic than what they actually are. Is there some way you can, adjust for that, or coach them or guide them along to?
So I'll give you, for all you guys, this is all new to you. I'll give you a story. So any of you that knew Carson Soling, he was one of our assistants. He worked here for 5 or 6 years. So, I got a really good chance to know him. He worked here a long time. He's like a little brother. When I was a little skeptical when we first were bringing this on as a tool, and our old GM is very involved with it. His wife is she did your training for it, right, Jonathan?
Yes, Jody.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So complete expert, they call them PI ninjas. so I was a little skeptical. I'm like, well, how can this thing be that accurate? When I read Carson's profile, basically, does the traces first, and then you kind of read about the person. It's like it had known him for the 31 years or 2 years he'd been alive. It was ridiculous how accurate it was. Now, I will say there's been a couple, and Ryan, you're a perfect example. I don't think it nailed you. I think it got Jacob, it got Cam real well in identifying, but I don't think, from the 6 months that you spent here, I don't think it nailed you. You're the I'd say the furthest I've seen from it not being maybe what it identified you to be. So you're the one example I'd say, maybe one others that's been on our team. I'd say, how I use it mostly is, my expectation of what the employee is what the candidate's gonna be like when they come here. So I don't set an expectation, that, I'm, shocker for you guys, I'm way right on as far as, I'm almost a sigma and a half right in dominance, and I'm almost 2 sigmas left for, those of the hash marks that are on that graph, left for drive. I don't have a ton of patience, and, I don't necessarily always want a ton of other people's input. Shocker, I know, for you guys that work with me. But reading other people's profiles helps me, okay, this person's going to need more instruction and more detail before being able to give free reign. This person doesn't need that. This person needs to work with people and needs to be in a social environment. This person doesn't. So it kind of just sets an expectation of what I can expect before the person even gets here.
Hey, Jonathan, when you're trying to build a team and all of a sudden you stack all these profiles and they're so divergent from one another, has there been any, I guess, is there any information behind that and saying like that is a terrible team to try to put together? Like when you look at all the different personalities?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jeff. So certain profiles complement each other well, but it also has a lot to do with what tasks are being asked of them. So, so for Jeff, right, if Jeff has someone on his staff that they're asked to run the Monday outings, they have to get up on a microphone and speak, and that person, if they're really introverted, they're all the way left, right? Then that's probably not the right fit. They're probably better off maybe behind the scenes a little bit. So certainly, yeah, the profiles can complement each other well, but it's also, hey, as a leader, being aware of what tasks are being asked of them, and is that the right thing is that the right complement for them?
Right. And on Jeff's profile, questions for Ronimink, was there a question on there about eating chips or drinking soup? Anything like that? Like,
It's my patience level.
Yeah, that's the C.
Yeah.
C is for chips.
Hey, Jeff, when you and I talked about the PI and how you read the report, you said something that was interesting. And, if everyone looks at the report, you've got your A, B, C, and D. You said, a person could be successful. What did you say? 1 or 2 columns from where that is. But, if you're asking to move maybe 3 or more, you're out of your comfort zone. It's potentially not a good fit. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah. So I think how it was explained to me, and I've only done one level of training with, beyond just spending time with John and Jody, my old GM. I think how the middle graph, Jonathan, how it was explained to me is that's kind of your perception of what you need to be in your job, right? And if your A starts moving significant, if any of those markers start moving significantly far from where you are in the top, you're being somebody who maybe isn't totally natural for yourself, and it could make you tired, especially when you start crossing over the middle line. If you start crossing over the middle line from being, if Leela had to be in a position where she had to be reserved and not social, if she had to get left of the middle line, she'd be tired when she got home from work. She might not be happy in the role. So if you have to do something in your job that might not be in the physical makeup, like Jonathan said, if I gave somebody who's far left and they're much more reserved than they are social, gave them the microphone every time they had a tournament, and they got to sweat and feel nervous about getting up on the microphone every time, work's not going to be fun for them. They're not going to enjoy it. Or if I gave somebody that needs variety in the work that they do, needs different kind of things, where they're only processing invoices, they're going to be unhappy with their position. That's going to bring them, it probably going to take them over the center line. So I think there's ways to look at it that way.
And Jeff, I just want to say, yeah, there's obviously things that, there's tasks that you don't like to do that aren't your favorite task in every job. But you're right. I can tell a big difference. Like when I'm at the PGA show at the end of the day, I feel so energized because I'm around people all day versus like on my computer or haven't seen or talked to anybody all day. It's just a different feel. So
Keith, I'll give you a good example. Cameron's way right for social. He's not quite where Leela is, but he's pretty darn close. There'll be times where he's doing setup work for a tournament, or he's working on something on the computer, and he just gets up from the computer, he gets on a cart, and he drives the golf course. He needs interaction with people. He doesn't know it, but he's just like, I got to get out of here. I got to go talk to somebody. He needs that interaction with people. Versus, we've got a guy that works in accounting. He could go 3 days without talking to somebody. He'd be perfectly comfortable, and that's okay. That's just who they are, and their PIs show that too.
Well, I think, doing this as a practice run is important, and becoming familiar with it now is important. I was someone who got involved with it prior to this, and, knowing that when you submit your PI, and I think, Jonathan, you're absolutely right, you should submit it and be completely honest, right? So it's a good fit, and, you shouldn't trick anyone. But Jonathan, how would you say, for the Spark hire, for example, that's something you maybe should prepare for and tailor towards the position? And what are some things that you would specifically do to prepare for a Spark hire, going into it? Because if you go in without a plan and you just kind of wing it, it may not end well for you.
Yeah, great question, Keith. It is incredibly awkward. So I would certainly reach out to Leela myself. If for whatever reason, if you're not comfortable doing so, I would reach out to another assistant or a friend or someone in your circle that has gone through a Spark hire, just so you know what to expect. And my advice you would be prepared for it being awkward. And you can control what the controllables are. You can control your microphone, you can control your lighting, you can control your backgrounds. You can put anything behind you want to put behind you. I always say, put a piece or two behind you that is interesting, that someone can, when Purple Cow, remember you by, right? Oh, that's the person, they had a good story to tell as well. And the other thing that you need to be prepared for, if you haven't done a Spark before, Keith, I think you might have, is that you are actually, when the recording starts, you are looking at yourself, talking to yourself. And it's probably the most awkward thing in the world. And it trips everyone up, because all of a sudden your thoughts go from the question is at hand to, oh my gosh, I feel like Ricky Bobby. What do I do with my hands? I look like an idiot. And then you stumble and the time runs out. So one, be prepared. Know everything you can about the facility. Try to figure out what could be on the questions. You can control 3 of them. I can tell you right now, you're about me, 2 minutes, practice it day in and day out. Why are you interested in the opportunity, and closing comments? You're going to tackle 50% of the questions. Other than that, you're going to want to know the history of the club, read through the job description, reach out to anyone you can a little bit more about what are the hot buttons, what are the hot topics. Do they have a thriving junior golf program? What are some of the things that you feel like could be improved? Have they done junior league golf, Operation 36? What is their club fitting like? Find out all these little tidbits of information, process them, practice, and then be ready to go.
Guys, before we wrap up, any more questions for the group, for Jonathan, for Jeff, for Leela? I think it's about time we wrap it up, and really appreciative of everyone's time. But if anyone has a question, feel free to kind of get it off your chest now.
Keith, just real quick, I just want to thank you and Cam for taking the lead on this. The PAO is an important group, within our section, and obviously you all are the future leaders, inside of our association locally and nationally. So, thank you for taking the time, talking, preaching to the choir a little bit, but if you're not a member of the PAO, certainly encourage you all to jump in and be a part of that network. It's certainly evolved over time. And now, with Keith and Cam and Jeff Kitty, all being part of the leadership group for the PAO, it's certainly going in a really, really good direction. So, if you're eager about getting involved, certainly reach out to Keith or myself, be glad to find a spot for you. But Keith, thanks a lot. Great job. Cam, great job putting this together. Appreciate everybody's time and effort. So.
Yeah, Jeff, thanks for saying that. I would add one thing. It means a lot. Everyone who took the time to be on this call tonight, that says something, but also the PAO is trending in the right direction, I believe, and we've got some really great things coming this year. So, I would challenge each of you, the people who are on this call, to be a leader at your club and to get the people around you involved. So, I rallied the troops at Marion. I know Cam rallied the troops at Aronimink to get all your guys on the call. And, for the stuff that we're going to offer this year, whether it's educational or networking or even tournaments, get your people, the people that you're around, to get involved, because, you're going to better yourself. You're going to kind of improve, and it's nice camaraderie. So, the people that are on this call, get the people around you involved this year in PAO. And I think, if we can do that, we'd be in a really good spot.
Well said.
All right, that's a wrap. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you for helping out. Jonathan, Leela, thanks for taking the time. And we'll see you guys at the next one. We've got some more educational stuff coming, and just keep an eye out. All right. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye. Cheech, did you see that?
He just totally walked away from his computer.
Cheech.
Do you know Cheech? He's been around forever. Forever.
Yeah, I just think it's funny that he's got it in his name.
Oh, I know, right? Shook Dinas. Oh boy. Well, that was a long day for you kids. Thanks for hanging in. So appreciate it.
I think it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good.